Melissa Estak here at Sussex County Community College, where renowned meteorologist Bill Evans, weatherman on ABC News as well as various radio stations, is here to talk about his new book, Category 7, as well as give a presentation on hurricanes. So, Bill Evans, what is the name of your book?
It's called Category 7. I named it after a hurricane that I lived through as a child, Hurricane Camille, which actually was at one point a Category 7. The winds, if you take the Saffir-Simpson scale and extend it on out past 5, a 200-mile-an-hour wind in a hurricane would roughly be a Category 7. So that's why I named it that.
What triggered you to write your book?
I moved to New York City in 1989, and when I took the Staten Island ferry across over from Manhattan to Staten Island, I saw everything in the world that you can imagine in the area. You see Jersey, you see Manhattan, the Hudson River, East River, Brooklyn, Queens, Long Island, Staten Island, and I noticed one thing that all of that area had in common, that everything we need in life sits on water. Wastewater treatment plants, your drinking water, airports, trains, subways, major airports, JFK, LaGuardia, all this stuff, power plants, coal burning, garbage burning, nuclear power plant, all sits on water. And I thought, gosh, what a place for a hurricane. So having lived through hurricane and coastal communities, I wanted to write a book to alert New Yorkers about the effects of hurricanes that have happened over hundreds of years in New York City. Every 70 years a major hurricane hits New York City, and we're almost on that 70th anniversary. So the 38 storm was the last storm that hit the area, and it impacted a lot of New England. It destroyed hundreds of thousands of Dutch elm trees. There's no more Dutch elm trees in New England. Not only that, it killed 700 people on Long Island at a time when only 200,000 people lived there. Now there's 3 million people that live there. So I really wanted to write a book about, more or less about preparedness. And I decided, after looking at writing books and taking my time, that the only way to get people to read my book is to make it entertaining, and that could get the message out. So I tried to do a little education through entertainment, and used weather manipulation, came up with some great characters, and put the book together.
Did you have fun with the process in writing your book?
It took me 10 years to write this book. And I wanted to make sure I had all the research right. I looked and did a lot of research all the way back to 1400, before the time of Columbus, and looked at logs from the great sea captains to see where all the hurricanes had been from then on. And then I researched all the architecture of New York City and Long Island and Connecticut as to what, like, the Roebling family was thinking when they built the Brooklyn Bridge and all these bridges around Trenton and Manhattan, and Robert Moses, one of the great builders in New York City. Were they thinking they were building stuff that could withstand a hurricane? So I did all that, and it was a lot of fun to write, because you had to come up with characters, and you had to do what's called a character arc. They're in one place at the beginning of the book, and they're in another place at the end of the book, and you have to give them a life, and you have to give them a past, and you have to give them a future, and they have to make decisions, and they have to make life-changing, life-altering, life-threatening decisions, and they're one place at the beginning of the book and one place at the end. So it's not easy writing books. I thought it would be easy writing a book. I had all the research. That turned out to be the easier part, but I really had a great time writing this book. And it put a lot of tension into the book, too, and there's a lot of hurricane destructive nature that's into the book, and so it's a nice read. Even though it's my book, it's a nice read.
Do you think people are going to relate to your characters in your book?
I think so. They're normal, everyday characters. They're average people. I geared this book toward women, and I made the female meteorologist in the book the heroine of the book. I wanted to highlight the fact that there's a lot of women in meteorology that people don't even know about, that really help society. Not only people in front of cameras and behind microphones, but there are a lot of women in meteorology that forecast commodities on Wall Street. They work for government, they work for colleges, universities. I flew in the Hurricane Hunter, the aircraft that flies into hurricanes, and the person that gave us the pilot briefing, the flight briefing, the weather briefing before we went into a hurricane, we're going to take this airplane and fly into a hurricane, the person who gave us the briefing was the female meteorologist there at the base. So I wanted to highlight that, and that's what we did. We have the female meteorologist in the commodities firm is the heroine of the book. We have CIA agents, we have a weatherman, we have a megalomaniac billionaire who can create and manipulate weather. So I think the characters are very real.
Do you have a favorite character in your book?
I like the female meteorologist. Her name is Kate Sherman in the book, and a lot of her humor, her sarcastic humor and way and nature is actually a lot of my personality that I wrote into the book. So maybe I was a female meteorologist in another life, but no, I put a lot of my personality comes through her.
Did you ever come to a difficult point in writing your book?
I did myself a favor. I started in radio when I was 13, and whenever you make a comedy bit in radio, you start with an ending, and then you go backwards. So I started with the end of the book and went backwards, and I think probably for some writers, this is my first novel, but for some writers, writing the book and then figuring out how you're going to finish it is the block. For me, the in-between was the block, and we came up with some really good stuff.
Which do you prefer working on, radio or television?
Well, they're both very different. On radio, I have so much fun because we laugh a lot and we cover a lot of topics. We cover a lot of current events and and a lot of different culture, and we pop culture and things like that. And so I enjoy radio for that. Television is a different medium. Radio is a hot medium. Television is a warm medium. I enjoy helping the public on television, making a forecast and giving it to them every day. I've always thought that the weather person's role in life is a public servant. Some of the public servant weather people dress a little better than but that's about the only difference. I think that they're both great, and that's why I've always done both in every market that I've worked in. I've been in New York now 20 years, and I've been at the television station 10 and at WPLJ 16. So it's been great. I like them both equally. They're just so very different that I miss them both when I'm not doing them.
As you can see, we have a packed theater tonight here at Sussex County Community College. Bill Evans just gave an entertaining presentation on weather and hurricanes, along with answering various questions from the audience. His book, Category 7, is now available. I want to thank Bill Evans for a great interview. This is Melissa Estock reporting for EDTV 20.